Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that have been with me for the last, I don't know how long I've been doing this now, a couple of months I suppose. Thank you. Your support has been absolutely tremendous. And everybody that comes back week in, week out, I'm really am truly grateful. But anyway, so if you are new to the channel, my name's Karen. I'm 56 years old. I am also type 2 diabetic. And I do have my Monjaro prescribed to me on the NHS. So I am fortunate in that sense that I don't have to go privately. However, I am type 2 diabetic. So I was hoping that I was going to get my blood results this week, but unfortunately my GPs have had to cancel and rearrange my appointments. It doesn't look like I'm going to get that done for the next couple of weeks, unfortunately. So again, if you are new to the channel, and you like the content, please consider liking and subscribing. I do get back to everybody in the comments. If you have any questions at all, by all means, drop me a message. So today's video, I'm going to go through what I consider, and by I mean I am not a medical professional. I do not have any medical background. These are just things that I've done over the last 6 months that I found helpful and I believe that could be helpful to others. So anybody that's starting out on their journey or is considering it, then hopefully this would be helpful. Anybody that's been on the journey for a while, maybe there's a few bits and pieces in here that you're not aware of. So let's hope I can help everybody. Like I said, I answer all my comments. So if you've got any additional information that you want to add to this, please just pop it in the comments below. Right. Like I said, there's 8 and then a couple of bonus ones, let's say. Right, so I'm going to start off first with scales. Now, most of us have got a pair of bathroom scales shoved away in a corner somewhere that come out randomly. Scales have evolved so much in the last few years and they're not that expensive anymore. I mean, the ones that I had prior, I had a pair of like Weight Watchers ones, I think they were. I've most likely had them for at least 15 years and they were supposed to do your vitals as well, but realistically it had like on the screen it would flash through body fat and percentage, but it wasn't recordable, let's put it that way. So scales today are much more advanced and much cheaper. So I would really suggest that you invest in a good pair of scales. And by invest, you can pick them up for around £20. It's not expensive. Obviously, it's within your own budget. If you can afford a better pair, then you can go higher end. But basic electronic scales nowadays will do body fat percentage. They'll give you quite a few different stats and they're all linked to an app. So I would suggest, especially if you're on an old pair of scales, get something that's more accurate and gives you more information. Like I said, the apps are brilliant. If I can I'll pop a little screenshot of what my app looks like. Now, the scale that I use is, it's called, let me just check my notes, In Smart Health. Okay, but you've also got Renfo is a really big one that quite a lot of people seem to use. They're all basically the same, but again, they just give you a bit more of an accurate information. They're not brilliant. They're not DEXA scans. They're not giving you exact information, but what they will do is give you a baseline and something to measure your progress on. So yeah, that's the first tip I would say. If you haven't done already, get yourself a decent pair of scales. Okay, tip 2. On the scales again, but this time food scales. And again, technology has moved on. You've got some really good digital scales now. I would highly recommend tracking your food. Now, that's not necessarily forever, but I would say for at least a couple of weeks, just to get a baseline of what you are eating. And it does mean you need to weigh it out. you need to be weighing out your portion of whatever it is that you help yourself to, because I guarantee you it's more than you think you are putting on the plate, unless you've been absolutely skilled at this for a long time. But we're all guilty. You know, this is the reason we're on this in the first place, is that 9 times out of 10 we are overeating. We think we are eating healthy and healthy amounts, when actually if you put it on the scale, you're most likely overeating. I know I was overeating by at least 50% on everything when I thought I was doing okay, because I was guesstimating. I mean, just a portion of cereal is something like supposed to be 28, 30 grams. Most of us put at least 60 into a bowl. So that's a consideration to take into. And again, food scales are not expensive. I am going to link some products down below. And just for transparency, I do have an affiliated Amazon account. So all the links will be affiliated, and I do earn a very small few pennies off anybody that orders. No additional cost to yourself. It's just a bit of commission that I could earn. But I will link them all in my description below. Feel free to go and check them out. By all means, go and purchase on your own account. You don't have to come through mine by any means, but it'll just give you an idea. So food scales, what you want is something that's resettable. Is that a word? It's a word today. So basically something that you can pop your plate on, you can add whatever it is to it, you can register that weight, you can then zero it, and then you can add something else to it, and then you can register that weight. So you want something that you don't have to weigh individual items all of the time, because that's time consuming, and if it's too time consuming, we're just not going to do it. But if you've got a plate that you can just pop on, and as you're adding your potatoes, you can say, okay, 100 grams of potatoes, move on, 150 grams of whatever your meat is, whatever. So that's really helpful. So tip 3 is on the same lines, and that's a food tracker in general. So basically track your calories. If you're triggered by calories, that I perfectly understand. There are other ways of measuring your calories with, I think it's like hand sizes. So the palm of your hand for your protein and a handful of carbs. There's different ways of doing it. But if you can, I would seriously recommend that you track your food and your calories. Absolutely everything you eat for at least the first couple of weeks. It will give you a baseline. It will give you an idea of what you're eating, what your calorie intake is truly, as opposed to what you think you're eating, and also where you can make adjustments. So especially in the early days, for the majority of people, not everybody, they do find that they're eating a lot less, and they find it really difficult to even get to what their calorie maintenance should be. And for others, not so much. I didn't really have much of a problem. I do have the odd low calorie day, but not significant anymore. So something to take into consideration. So you don't have to track forever, but what it will do is give you an idea of what you're actually eating compared to what you think you're eating. So there's plenty of trackers out there. There's loads of free apps. I particularly use MyFitnessPal. I use the free version. There is a paid for version, although I think that one is actually quite expensive compared to some of the other paid for versions. NutriCheck is one that a lot of people use. And I think in hindsight, I would most likely have used NutriCheck previously. However, I started on MyFitnessPal and I've been using it now for 6 months, so I've stuck to it. But I think the NutriCheck paid version isn't that expensive if you pay for a whole year. I think it's around the £30-40. Don't quote me on that, but if I can find out, I'll pop it in the descriptions below. As I said, if all you're going to use it for is a couple of weeks, I think NutriCheck definitely do a week free trial first, but I don't believe they do a free version as such. So there's a week free first off, and then I think it's paid for after that. But there's loads. Go to your app store, wherever you get your apps from, have a look. There's a lot of different ones. But yet again, I would definitely say track your food. Even if you're not planning on doing so long term, it just gives you a baseline. Don't forget, this injection, this medication is completely different on the whole to any diet that you've ever been on before. So all the calorie counting and the macros and whichever diet you've been on, I found it, and again, my personal opinion, I found it completely different to any other diet that I've ever been on. Mainly because of the food noise going. Every single time I've been on a diet, I have been obsessed with food. Absolutely obsessed. More so than when I'm not dieting, because what I'm thinking about is the next meal. I'm always hungry. I want to continue eating, and this stops that noise and allows you to actually plan your meals correctly and not obsess about them. So I'm digressing. So anyway, track your food. Even if you don't need to do so long term, it's a really good tool to start off with, just to give you a baseline, give you an idea of what to expect. Right, moving on. But on the same thing, my fourth tip is going to be tracking again, but this time step count. We all know that we need to move. You know, there is major truth in the calories in, calories out. You do need to be moving. But most weight loss is down to calories in. You can enhance it, and you can boost your weight loss by exercising, but you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet, sorry. So steps for me was the starting point. It was about getting out and going for a walk. I didn't do any formal type of exercise. I found it really difficult. I had no motivation whatsoever. When my journey first started, it was my son that sort of dragged me out, basically. He was like, come on, 5 o'clock, finished work, let's go for a walk. And start by a walk around the block. I think the average that is recommended is somewhere between 6 to 10k every day. Now that's an overwhelming number. That sounds ridiculous. I still have mine set at 6k, and I don't hit that every day. I have a very sedentary job. I work from home. I sit at a computer literally all day long, and sometimes the only exercise I get is going to the loo or going to put the kettle on. That's it. My step count can be, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 by the time I get to 5 o'clock in the evening if I don't purposely get up and move. So I would definitely recommend everybody getting a step tracker of some form. Now, there's a lot of different ones out there. You can get a very cheap, generic step counter, and all it does is count your steps. Now, I use Fitbit. This is a really old Fitbit. It's a Charge 2, if anybody knows what's out there. I brought it, feels like centuries ago, but most likely at least 10 years ago. And I still use it because that's all I use it for. No, that's a lie. I do use the sleep app side of it. But realistically, the only thing I really use on a daily is my step count. It's linked to my phone. It's linked to every app that I have now. It's linked to my phone, and it tells me where my steps are for a day. But you can get very cheap, generic ones. You know, if you've an Apple person, you've got smartwatches, then you've got Apple Watches, you've got things like Garmin's. But it's what suits you and what suits your budget. If you want, you know, the more expensive ones track so much, they're not necessary for weight loss. The only thing you really need for weight loss is a step count. And possibly the sleep app. You know, sleep's really important. You do need to sleep properly, so maybe if you're struggling, that function could be helpful. But yeah, get a step counter. Okay, 5. I'm just aware that I'm running out of time on this, and I'm only on number 5. Okay, number 5 for me is I've named it the Rescue First Aid Kit. And And I find this really, really helpful in the early days. And there were certain things on here that I wish I had have got in. And it's things that's going to help you with any side effects that you may get. Not everybody gets all the side effects, but these things are just handy to have in, pretty much inexpensive on the whole. And it's that just in case scenario. So things like antacids, Tums, Rennie's, supermarket own brands, any of those. So if you do get heartburn, or if you know that you suffer from heartburn, which I did anyway, they also help with things like just trapped wind, or I found, especially in the early days, I've got a bit burpy, and I've heard that reported on from several people. And things like basic antacids will help with that. There is anecdotal evidence, which I'm hearing quite often now, that people are really big upping Pepto-Bismol. Now, it isn't cheap, but apparently it is really good for, again, a lot of stomach issues in general, so digestion. It's supposed to help with things like diarrhea. If anybody has seen that advert, yeah, I'm singing it in my head now. I'm not going to sing it out loud. But yeah, upset stomachs, diarrhea, heartburn, the general things. But also, anecdotally, it's really supposed to help with the sulfur burps. So if that's something that you're either experiencing or concerned that you may experience, then Pepto-Bismol, I'm assuming there must be generic versions of it, but you would need to speak to your pharmacy, work out what the best version is. I don't think Pepto's particularly cheap, but again, depending on your budget, it might be something that you want to consider getting in. The other one that I would say are things like anything to help with either diarrhea or constipation. So that may be a mild form of laxative if you sort of go down the constipation route, or something alongside Imodium that if you go the other way and you get a bit of a runny tummy. Again, there are generic versions, the supermarket versions. Speak to your pharmacist. You do not have to be paying the big brand prices. Now, if you're a brand person, then fine. If you're not, and budget is an issue, then by all means speak to the pharmacist. There is pretty much a generic version of everything. I've just bought some diarrhea tablets from Asda, and I'm like 89p. So have a look around. Don't just assume you've got to go down the big brand route. The other thing on this one is things like additional fibre. Now, it sort of falls into supplements as well, but things like making sure you've got enough fibre in your diet can help with both constipation and diarrhea. It works in both ways. You know, it let's say it just helps lubricate things and keeps things going. But again, you can be looking at things like fibre gels, that sort of thing. Again, they're not cheap. Psyllium husk, again, is another fibre. I mean, ideally, you're getting your fibre from your diet, but if your diet's being restricted, then maybe you're not getting as much. I know I struggle with getting enough fibre in. I don't struggle with stomach issues, so from that point of view, I'm just trying to up my fibre a little bit at a time. So, but there are alternatives out there. The other one that I would suggest, and again, I haven't put this in the supplement section because I don't believe it to be a supplement, but that's electrolytes. If you have a really upset stomach, you've got diarrhea, if you've been suffering for a couple of days maybe, then electrolytes is probably a good idea, because if you're losing fluid, then you do want to be replacing it and replacing the salts. I personally don't agree with electrolytes as a general supplement, because on average we're not working out hard enough to need that. If you are working out and you're sweating a lot, even in the heat, but if you're sweating a lot and and you're, I would say, rigorously exercising, then electrolytes is definitely something that you might want to put onto your radar. But for general, if all you're getting is your steps in, I personally don't believe that we need it. But like I said, I'm not a medical expert, so make your own decisions on that one. If you want to get electrolytes, I mean, you can overdo them, but in reality, unless you do not by any means take 2-3 a day, but if you're just taking them maybe daily or every couple of days, it's not going to do you much in the way of harm. The best thing you can do is drink a glass of water. Just get your water down you, or fluids in general. It doesn't have to be pure water. But on the whole, that's enough with the food that you're having. Okay. Right, moving on. And again, number 6 is supplements. So, and this is why I put electrolytes in the first aid kit as opposed to supplements, because I don't believe it is a supplement. But supplements, again, on the whole, we shouldn't need them. However, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say that I take quite a few supplements, but I take what I believe I need for my body. Now, and this is what I mean, don't just assume you have to take every single supplement that's out there and that is recommended, because you most likely don't. You need to work out what you need. Now, I would personally say a basic vitamin, multivitamin, over the counter, nothing elaborate. And again, you buy within your budget. There are cheaper supermarket versions. The active ingredients in them tend to be the same regardless of what brand you go for. The higher end ones will tend to be maybe cleaner, purer, so less bulking agents in them. But the general ingredients in them are pretty much the same. So again, it's down to budget and what you feel comfortable with. You make that decision for yourself. I would say that pretty much everyone in the UK needs vitamin D. The sun is out and great, you need to get out into the sunshine, but in general, an all-round vitamin D isn't going to hurt anybody. We're pretty much standard in the UK that we're all deficient in some way. I mean, I was actually deficient. I had blood work done, so I take vitamin D. The other one that I touched on again in the rescue kit is fibre. You can take fibre supplements. It's best taken within your diet, obviously, but if you're struggling, then things like fibre gels, psyllium husk again, so additional fibre that can help move things along, let's say. And the other one on that one is specifically what I take, and again, this is something that you guys need to work out for yourself. I take a magnesium complex. Magnesium citrate is supposed to be, again, good for good gut digestion and gut movement. It helps bring the water into the gut, and a couple of other benefits of magnesium in general tend to be around sleep. So I do take a complex. I think it's got 5 different magnesiums in it, but again, it will be in my links below if you're interested to go and have a look at it. The other things that I do take are around joint care for me. Like I said, I'm 56, I am knocking on a bit. I do have a bit of a dodgy shoulder, so I take fish oils. So I take a high concentrated, I want to say it's cod liver oil. It might not specifically be cod liver oil, but it's a fish oil. And I also take a high strength glycosamine with some additional bits and bobs added to it as well. And that was actually recommended to me via my physio, who's been working on my shoulder, just to give a little bit of mobility. But the other one that I hear quite a lot about is for things like hair and nails, so anything with biotin. Again, you can get a lot of multivitamins with added biotin, but again, do your research, see what the recommended amounts are. I personally don't take biotin, but I also don't have a hair issue. I personally think I get enough protein in general that I don't need to supplement biotin, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people swear by it. So okay, so that moves me on to number 7, which is protein, and specifically protein and collagen. Now, this is one that I do take. I try and hit a high protein diet. So I aim for a minimum of 100 grams of protein, 100 to 120 if I can. And I get that from as much as I can from my food. However, with a limited appetite and ability to get that much food in me, I do supplement my protein. So I have a protein powder, which is, it varies actually. The one I'm using at the moment is a soy-based one. It's not a whey-based one, but my decision is purely for cost. Whey isolate is the gold standard. However, the majority of us are not necessarily bodybuilding. We just need to up our protein to help protect the muscle that we have. Again, maybe something you want to look at further down the line with the different qualities of protein. However, for just bumping up your protein, it's what's affordable. I buy a big 4K tub. It lasts a couple of months. For some people, they'll buy the ready-made shakes. Occasionally, I have the odd one. Tesco's, on their lunch meal deals, they actually do a protein shake as part of it. So if I do have to do that, if I've gone into the office, I'll buy a meal deal, and I will get a protein shake. But it's rare for me. I will make my own. But on the whole, I will have one pretty much daily. I'll do, and if anyone sees my shopping haul, I'll also do things like additional protein yogurts, just to keep bumping it up. I do have some protein bars occasionally as well. So I do try, and most of those will give you around 20 to 25 additional grams of protein. But I do make sure that I only supplement it once in the day. The rest of it is from my diet. In addition to my protein, I also take collagen supplements. So collagen is a form of protein. It's not a complete protein. However, so if you're eating enough, and you've got, especially if you're on a meat, if you do eat meat and fish, you should be taking in collagen anyway. I take a supplement. I am trying to eliminate a little bit of the saggy skin. Whether it's going to work or not is a different matter, but I feel comfortable taking collagen. So I take it. If I'm having a protein shake, I'll also put a scoop of collagen in there. But on days when I'm maybe not having my protein shake, then it dissolves in coffee. It's tasteless. It's a very simple supplement to take. But again, you do your research and work out what you feel is comfortable. And what's in your budget. Protein powders are huge at the moment. Everybody is jumping on the protein powder bandwagon. You get clear protein now, so that tastes like fruit juices as opposed to the more milky, milkshakey ones. It's down to preference and also down to budget, because the clear proteins are not cheap, and not the big brands. So again, have a look around, see what's available and what suits your pocket. Okay, that's the basics. Now I am going to throw in a couple of additional ones. Number 8 is again a little bit of additions, and it's like extra equipment almost. Now most of you that will be watching this will be looking at going private for the medication, and your provider should be sending out sufficient needles, sufficient alcohol wipes. I personally would recommend grabbing an additional pack, just because needles do fail, that, you know, it's not regular, but there's, you know, sometimes that the needle's not formed properly, and it blocks, and you will have to take it off, put a new needle on. So they're very inexpensive. So you can get a box of 100. Again, I'll link the ones that I use down in the description below, but you can get a box of 100. I'm going to say off the top of my head around £20. You know, 100 is going to last you 2 years, one a week, and it's an addition. But again, you don't have to. You can go back to your supplier if you feel that your needle's faulty. You can ask for additional ones. It's the same with the alcohol wipes. They usually supply 6, which should in theory be sufficient, but I find them helpful to just have as an additional backup. So again, I've ordered an additional packet of them. So I get mine from the NHS, and quite often my doctor forgets to put on additionals, so I don't worry about it. So I have my own pack, of which I'll use. The other thing though that I will say is something to consider, and again, not absolutely necessary, but if you are considering the 5th dose and taking that additional amount that's in the pen, I get some people don't want to, some people are thinking about it, and some people change their mind halfway down, but it's worth getting some insulin syringes. Just you have the option, and again, they're inexpensive. You get them on the one pack that I have, I think is a pack of 20, so it's going to last a long time if you're just considering that once a month. It depends on how you decide to do your dosing, so something to consider, not necessarily a must-have, but definitely a consideration. Okay, right, so I'm going to move on, and that's the 8 what I'd class as more essentials. But I do have a couple of extra bonuses. So number 9, for me, this again varies in cost and where you are in your journey, quite possibly, but it's exercise equipment. Now, for those that do not exercise and do not go out for I don't even go out for a walk, that's where you start. You just get moving. You just try and get out and go for a walk. And I suppose the equipment in that case is your step counter, and maybe a pair of trainers, whatever you're comfortable in. So you go out for a walk. But I would say, as soon as you possibly can, resistance training is crucial. If you want to hold on to your muscle mass, or not lose as much, we're going to lose some. Everybody is going to lose some muscle mass. It's pretty inevitable, and it doesn't matter what diet you were on, that is part of weight loss. Your body holds much more muscle when you're heavy because it has to move a big lump around. When you're lighter, it doesn't have to, so it can pare down muscle. So we are going to lose muscle, but resistance training will help you to keep hold of it. Now, you can do this with resistance bands, and they are affordable. You can get a pack of resistance bands for, again, that under the £20. And they're actually quite good in the sense that it will get you moving, it will get you just exercising your basic muscles and get you into a routine. You can go up to something like some small dumbbells or kettlebells. And again, something that's reasonably affordable, again, dependent on your budget, and you can up your resistance training. You do need to be lifting as heavy as you possibly can. However, in the early days, you don't. You just need to move. You just need to move those muscles and get them used to being used, because using them will help to keep them. So resistance bands, dumbbells, pretty affordable in most cases. Maybe something like a yoga mat, something to help the comfort of doing. I never used to have a yoga mat, and then I got one. I'm like, okay, this doesn't hurt so much to lie on the floor anymore. So a yoga mat, again, something quite inexpensive. My mouth's just not working today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Let's get a drink. Okay. And then you can go up the scale. There's personal home gym equipment if you've got the space for it, and you're looking at the costs going. For me, I purchased a walk-in pad. I find that quite helpful. Just on the days maybe if the weather's not so good and I'm not going out, that I can get some steps in at home. Um, or if I'm close to my target, I can jump on the evening whilst watching the telly and just do another 10 minutes, and then that gives me whatever my step count should be for that day. And I suppose that the gold standard, or for me, is a gym membership. Now, they vary so much. You can get reasonably cheap gym memberships for around the £20-25 a month, which will give you a basic gym, which is all I have. I use City Gym, very basic, but really good equipment in there. But if you want to go down the Lloyd's route and you want a sauna and a steam room and a swimming pool, then it's budget dependent. When I did have that sort of membership, I did find that I spent more time in the sauna and the steam room than I ever did exercising. So that's something to take into consideration. But personal trainers, it's very much down to budget. I would love to be able to get a personal trainer, but that is beyond my means, or at least now. But then you've also got a really high standard of home equipment that you can purchase. So, and again, but that's down to space, whether or not just cost, but whether you've got the space to even set up your own little gym at home. But that's not necessary. Gyms in general, you've got places like your councils will run council pools, and you can usually pay on a visit basis. You don't have to buy a membership. But it's all something to consider, and maybe something to aim towards. Right now, you might be going, I can't get out and walk for 5 minutes, never mind join a gym. But think of future you, down the line, 6 months, a year, maybe that is something that you'd want to consider. Okay, and finally, number 10 is very much about future you. We are relearning how to eat. If you are going to be successful on this journey, you have to change your eating habits, because I'm going to put money on that the majority of us did not get here by eating healthily, correctly, all of the time, because we wouldn't be on this otherwise. We did eat the wrong foods, we ate the wrong amounts, and we most likely pigged out on junk much more often than we ever should have done. So it's a fact. Oh, it's a fact for me. Let's put it that way. I cannot sit here and say I was all perfect. I don't know why I put the weight up. Yeah, old me may have come out with that. I eat perfectly well. I don't understand why, but realistically, I do. I eat crap. So you are relearning, and for me, I rewarded myself with food. I commiserated with food. I did everything, any emotion that you could possibly have. I numbed or congratulated or anything. Food was my answer. So if I'd been really good all day and I'd eaten nothing but salad, I deserved that chocolate biscuit or half a packet on the evening, and those calories didn't count. I've been to the gym, I've done really well this week. I'm going to congratulate myself with a piece of cake, and that piece of cake is half a cake, big cake, family cake. So you need to work out how you replace that. Now, that could be lots of different things, and it is going to be personal to you. For me, I think I'm not saying I'm becoming a little bit more of a shopaholic, but for me, it's buying myself a few little luxuries. Now that could just be a new skin cream, a new piece of makeup, haircuts. I've actually, this year, I don't go and get regular haircuts. Again, it's like, can I really afford that additional 50 quid? But this year, I have booked in every couple of months and I go and get my haircut. And that's my treat to myself. So things like that, like I said, it's all going to be personal. It could be handbags, shoes, whatever your vice is in that sense. But you do need to find a way of rewarding yourself. And it doesn't have to be financial. It could be something that's not. It could just be spending additional time with loved ones, family members, pets. You know, you find a way to support your weight loss, but also a way to celebrate it that isn't food. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still have the odd, I'd say cheat meal is wrong, but celebrationary meal. So if it's someone's birthday, I will go out for a meal. I will eat something that I wouldn't be doing so on this diet, but I would have done as a normal eater. I go on holiday in a couple of weeks' time. I am taking the brakes off. I'm still going to take my Monjaro, so I'm hoping that will curb my appetite a little bit. I am definitely taking the brakes off, and I will definitely be having a few extras. Let's say, I want ice cream. I want to be able to have a dessert if I feel like it, and I will definitely be drinking. So, cocktails, wine, beer, spirits, all of the above are for 7 days. So I expect I'm not going to be kicking the arse out of it like I would have done, but I'm not going to limit myself either. If I want to drink, I will have a drink. So the second part of this one is clothes. You are wanting to lose weight, and for majority of you, a significant amount of weight. To be able to get this drug, you need to be in the obese category. So what does future you look like in saggy tracksuit bottoms in 6 months' time, a year's time? So what I would say is plan your wardrobe, and also plan for the in-between bit. Because for me, especially, I mean, I've gone from 15 stone and I'm now, without giving my weight away, around the 10. So 5 stone difference is 4 to 5 dress sizes. And each dress size in between, it's meant new clothes. So you need to be a little sensible around what you're buying. And don't get me wrong, if you've got the budget to go out and do that, then that's perfectly fine. But for the majority of us, you are going to be buying new clothes that quite possibly you'll only be in for a short period of time, maybe a couple of months, maybe 6 months, but be mindful of that. So, use the charity shops, go out looking for bargains, sale items. If you're buy cheaper products that you would do normally, so instead of buying the more expensive quality items, maybe consider the cheaper alternative, because it is something that maybe is a transitional part of your wardrobe that you won't be using again in 6 months' time. Vintage is really good, especially if you can sell your old clothes as well. So once you're out of those size 20 jeans and you want 18, 16s, then it's almost like doing a swap. You can put your old stuff onto Vinted, which will benefit somebody else, maybe earn you a couple of pounds by doing so, but then also give you a little bit of cash to then buy yourself that smaller size. And then once you start getting towards more of your goal weight, then obviously you buy a little bit more of what you want as opposed to what you can just fit in at the time. I know I spent a lot of time over the last 6 months in tracksuits, because at least elasticated waists grow or shrink with you in that sense. I love a pull cord. You've got to have a pull cord. But again, something to consider. And if you're very clothes orientated, then that could be part of your reward system as well. So, you know, you get to a certain milestone and you'll reward yourself with an XY new pair of trousers, skirt, jacket. Okay, right. That's just a few bits and pieces to think about. Hopefully it will help some people out, especially any new guys that are in. I'm going to just give a very quick update on my weight. So last week I weighed in at 142.4 pounds, which is 10 stone 2.4. My goal at the moment is 10 stone. Now, that will change. I just go down a bracket. So my long-term goal is most likely 8 something if I'm realistic, or low 9s. For content, I am 5'1". I am a short ass. 8 stone is not an unhealthy weight for me. It's not even in the low BMIs. My low BMI goes down to 7 stone something, which is bonkers. I'm not going down that route. But what I do is I just set myself the next £10 or the next stone bracket. So at the moment I'm coming close to the 140s, but I will shift that down. I'm going to have a new target once I come back from my holiday, because I do realise that anything I'm doing now will most likely be undone by my holiday, for at least for a couple of weeks anyway. So yeah, so today I weighed in at 140.8, so that's down 1.6 pounds. I'm getting very temptingly close to that 140, or I should say 139.9, so just to be under it. But I am realistic. I do know my holiday will put a couple of pounds back on. So from that point of view, it's just a nice target to have. But 140 is my goal at the moment. And once I'm under that, then I'll reset. So most likely heading towards the 130. And I will most likely rest in the high 120s, realistically. But we'll see when we get there, because the one thing I've learned is not to set anything in stone. I will see how I feel, what I look like, not necessarily what's on the scale. It's just something to aim towards. So yeah, I'm really pleased. 1.6 pound loss for this week. 0.8 to go, or 0.9 I should say, to get me under that 140. And I did have it set for my holiday. It's beginning to look like I wasn't going to get there. So I'm quite surprised. My weight loss has seemed to have picked up a little bit in the last couple of weeks. And I've also upped my calories slightly in the last couple of weeks. So that's definitely having a positive effect. So, right, on that note, I've waffled on way too long. So by the time I've edited this down, it's going to be well over half an hour. So I apologise. And if you've stayed to the end, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. No, I really do appreciate everybody that watches these vlogs, everybody that's subscribed, and anybody that makes any form of comments in the comments below. I get back to everybody. On the whole, my comments are really positive. That's it for today. I was going to do a food haul. I might upload as a separate, because I'm not going to add it onto this. It's way too long already. So I might pop a midweek food haul in. You till next week. So next Sunday it'll still be 2 weeks before my holiday. So it's officially the third weigh-in before my holiday. So I've still got another couple of weigh-ins before my holiday. So hopefully I can get down to that 140 also, or get under it, I should say. But for now, I am going to go and enjoy the sunshine. Yesterday was a bit cloudy, so today I'm going to get out in the garden, get the lawnmower out, and just enjoy the sunshine before I have to go back to work again tomorrow. So on that note, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, or the remainder of your weekend and week ahead. And I shall check in with you again next Sunday. Okay, bye for now.